Hey guys, Kevin here for the season premiere of Fargo Season 2, Episode 1, Waiting for Dutch. And I was definitely looking forward to this premiere for a couple of reasons. One, Fargo has not been on since May of last year, maybe June, May, something like that. But it hasn't been on since last year, and that's pretty crazy. I mean, it's been almost it's been very long since it's been on, and I can understand that it took them a while to come up with a new concept and everything. But that definitely, I was missing Fargo, and I have to say, that's another reason why I was also looking forward to it. Two, the concept of the season sounded very interesting. So if you guys don't know, they try to connect all of the Fargo movies and TV seasons together, which this is something that Ryan Murphy is trying to do with American Horror Story. I hate to compare it, but I want to because the only other FX anthology series. The thing that this show gets right is it's able to connect the three series together. It's able to connect them and have it make sense, while American Horror Story tries to do that and doesn't really work. This, I think, works perfectly because basically the whole thing of this season it revolves around one conversation that we had last season. If you remember, Gus and what was his name? Not Lou and Lorne. Lorne sat down with Lou and asked him about Sioux Falls, and Lou seemed upset when he talked about Sioux Falls. Clearly, there's something that happened there, and this entire season is us finding out what exactly happened at Sioux Falls. And I think that's a great plot overall. But just from this first episode, I have to say, this got me right back into it. I really loved every minute of this premiere. I already think they're going to surpass the first season just from this first episode. I really love where we're going, and it was really funny as well. Honestly, a very funny premiere, but also introduced us to some really great characters, and I can't wait to see where they go. But I have to say, might have had one of the best openings I've seen all year in a TV show because the way this literally opens with the old MGM black and white logo. I mean, that's just, it doesn't get weirder than that. It was so cool. It started like a movie. We then see a snippet of a black and white film, Massacre at Sioux Falls. They even have like the original score, the original Fargo score, which is awesome. I love the score. It's like da 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 da. That score, but it's like faster and it sounds something out of like an old movie. It's really cool. And the movie apparently is starring Ronald Reagan, but he's not in the clip instead. It's actually a conversation between an actor and maybe the director, and it doesn't really matter who they are because the landscape is way more interesting and their bodies everyone. This probably isn't going to be the last time we see that sort of thing this season. They're arguing back and forth because Ronald Reagan's not there, and I love the guy that was in the Indian suit. He's like, I'm freezing my balls off here. I can't be wearing these Cherokee shoes in the winter. I thought it was definitely very funny. I definitely really love that scene, and it perfectly gets us right into this episode. So from there, we see this really cool title sequence that very much felt like a movie. Very much it felt that way. And we promise that this installment will be based on a true story, but names have been changed at the request of the survivors, just like we always get, which it's not based on a true story, but that's something that the original movie did. So that's just a way to get us back into the Fargoverse. I know it doesn't make sense, but that's kind of the point. That's supposed to feel like this could be based on a true story, which we know it's not, but I like how they do that because it's just something that they do, and it's a way for us to know, oh, Fargo's back, and that's just something that we're used to. Honestly, I think we're used to it. That it makes sense that they did that, and I'm fine with that. Honestly, I'm not gonna blame them for that. So we see the promises may seem familiar, but we then see just from the first few seconds that we see that the events depicted took place in Minnesota in 1979. It's not taking place in 1979. It doesn't take place in the present. It takes place in 1979. And we then see some glimpses of Jimmy Carter, John Wayne Gacy, Jim Jones, and several other headliners from that era. However, you don't really need. What I like about this is that we don't need. The show is not trying to get you to know historical references. It's all about just what's going on here, and it all looks like 70s though. You can just tell from like the cars, what they're wearing, just the setting. It feels like the 70s, and I thought that was awesome. Just from this one title shot, it was awesome. So we then see we start off right away basically with what ends up happening because after the highlights reel, we actually get a peek at some of the season's cast and we get introduced to some characters that we're probably never going to see again. And I thought it was really cool the way they handle that in this episode because the first 20 minutes we basically are kind of like a prologue to this season. I thought it was really cool how they stay with these three characters for 20 minutes and we don't see any of the main characters that we're going to see this season. Well, except for one, and we'll get into that. But we basically get introduced to Dodd, Gerhardt, and his brother Rye, played by Jeffrey Donovan and Kieran Culkin, who Kieran Culkin, awesome in this episode. He was a badass in this episode, I have to say. The two are part of the Gerhardt crime family, which controls trucking and distribution for the entire northern Midwest, and obviously they are gangsters, and Dodd's right-hand man, Hansy, is also in the background, and Rye has kept Dodd waiting, and Dodd's not the type of guy you want to keep waiting. He's also not the type of guy you want to keep waiting for money, and Rye seems to be holding out, maybe because he's not all that pleased with his current position, and maybe he just spent the money, and Dodd doesn't seem to care as long as he wants to get that money pronto. That's what Dodd wants. He wants to get this money pronto, no matter what happens, and we got a scene here that was very reminiscent of Pulp Fiction, where he was with that guy, and the guy was saying, "What?" And he's like, "You speak English," and it felt very Pulp Fiction. This entire episode felt very Pulp Fiction, which I definitely really love. I feel like that's going to be a thing with this season. That's kind of a way they make this very different from the first season, but it's very much like the first season as well, with like the whole crime thing. So we get introduced to Otto and his wife Floyd, and they're going over funds, and basically, Dodd walks in, kicks his brother Bear out of his seat at the table. The family's talking about the month's light crash flow due to local business, possibly Ryan, maybe even another outfit. As Otto starts to spit at fire about it, he suffers a massive stroke just out of nowhere. He has a stroke, and it's really sad. And the thing is, you don't know too much about these characters, but you already feel for them because you see that they're this family. That's what they're going through. I like seeing that. So Rye's day leads him to Waston's typewriters, where the owner shows him a new self-correcting model. And this is when typewriters were just starting to come out. And the guy's hoping that this awesome innovation will clear his gambling debts with the Gerhardts and set him right with the judge. And the judge is an actual judge who Rye follows to the Waffle Hut in Laverne, Minnesota. And Rye does a quick line of coke, enters the diner, and waits for the place to empty out. Now, we know that this entire season revolves around something that happens in a diner. So you know that something is going to happen in this diner. You don't know what's going to happen, but something's going to happen here. And this is when things just get crazy. And I thought this opening was just fantastic. It was, it was funny at first, but they did play this serious, which I really liked. Because he tries to convince the judge to change her mind about a case, presumably one that involves the typewriter guy. Again, we don't know too much about what's going on here. We just know that this is a crime family that, they're this crime family. They control trucking and distribution, the entire Midwest, and obviously Rye is pissed off at this guy, and there's some case going on that he doesn't want to be involved in, and that's really all we know. And I really like that because the mystery, that's a big part of this season, is what the hell is actually going on here. So we see that he's not very convincing, so she empties a can of bug spray right into his face, but that doesn't stop him. In return, he empties his gun on her. Everyone left inside the Waffle Hut. He just kills everyone inside that diner, and it's insane the way he does that. But you do see that he doesn't seem to be much of a killer. He's doing these things because he's pissed, obviously, out of vengeance, and as he stumbles outside, we kind of feel like maybe we're gonna care for this guy. But then, as he stumbles outside, distracted by a set. And by the way, that scene, I have to say, that was awesome because he kills this lady, he shoots the lady, he shoots other people coming in. She stabs him, but he manages to shoot her in the face, and that was just such an awesome scene. Really got us back into the violent world of Fargo. I love that. So he doesn't seem like much of a killer, though, because it's a bit too late for a change of heart. He then stumbles outside, and he's distracted by a set of lights which look like a UFO, which is very strange. And the second the lights disappear, he's hit by a car, and the driver stops for a second, but then continues on, and with Rye lodged in the windshield, and he apparently is dead. So now Rye is dead. And I love that, because this is a character that we've seen for only 20 minutes, and now he's dead. But it makes sense because that's what the whole season's about. It's now about, why this happened. What was he so upset about? Why did he kill all these people in a diner? That's what the rest of the season revolves around. The fact they spent 20 minutes on this, I really give a lot of credit to, because not many shows would do that. Most shows would do 4 minutes, they just solved this. But this show, no, it took a long time to actually get into the actual characters, which I definitely like seeing. And then we get into the actual characters of the season. We then, of course, meet Lou, who we know already, and he's reading to Molly. But Molly is now young. She's 6, which that's something that we're going to have to get used to, because obviously we're used to seeing Molly as Allison Tolman, but now she's a little girl, and that definitely puts us back into it. And we see his wife, Betsy, is doing the chores, and a call comes in, but Lou is distracted with how his wife is feeling. Apparently, we're going to find out what happened to Molly's mother. which Kristen Milotti is getting screwed over because Kristen Milotti keeps getting sick in shows. It happened to How I Met Your Mother, and now apparently it's happening on this. Which I think is, I don't know if that's going to be a curse with her character, but this is the second time that she's been on a show where her character is probably dying. So Betsy most likely is going to die. We know that's going to happen. It's very sad, but it's inevitable because, of course, we know something happened to Molly's mother, and we know something happened to Molly's mother, and we're going to find out what happens in this season. So Lou finds out that's something else, that I'm looking forward to finding out. So Lou finds out about the murder at the Waffle Hut. He heads to the scene where he's joined by Frank Larson, and Hank isn't just played by Ted Danson, and Hank isn't just the rock country sheriff. He's also Lou's father-in-law, and I thought that was kind of interesting. And the two inspect the carnage and then find a few bloody dollar bills in the road, as well as a white shoe hanging in a nearby tree, which, of course, we've seen that joke where they're just like, oh, there's a shoe in the tree, and they don't really think much of it, but it definitely could be a clue, because we see in the promo next week that Betsy starts to think that maybe the shoe could be a clue to what's going on. And the shoe is probably the shoe of Reese. That probably who, of Rye. That probably is who the shoe is of. So then we get introduced to Ed Bloomquist. He basically he works in Bud's Meats in Laverne, and he's leaving work in the action that moves to bingo night at the Veterans Hall. And this is such a funny scene, I have to say. This guy is just calling bingo numbers, and it's just so funny. The bingo guy in the background. I mean, this scene itself is funny, but the reason it was so funny is just the way this guy is calling the numbers. He's so happy about it. Nobody is into it really at all, and it's really funny. So we see Carl Weathers meets up with Lou, who is a vet himself, and basically he meets up with him. And Ed arrives with where his wife Peggy is cooking dinner. And by the way, Carl and Lou, they talk a little bit about like marriage and what goes with it. I thought that was kind of a funny scene. So Ed arrives where his wife Peggy is cooking dinner, and the two sit down and pray. And you can tell that they might want to skip the eating, definitely. Peggy says she's excited for a Life Spring seminar because everybody's doing it. She's trying to better herself, but Ed feels they can do that right here in Laverne. He's planning to take over the butcher shop and wants to start a family, but Peggy seems kind of hesitant. She doesn't really know if she wants to start a family, and basically Ed says, basically she knows. Then basically there's something in the garage. We realize he opens the garage door, finds a car with a gaping bloody hole in the windshield, and she tells him that she hit a deer, which obviously it was not a deer. And we realize that she is the one that hit Rye, and I really love that twist. I thought that was definitely something that I really enjoyed. I didn't think we were going to find that out in this episode, who hit Rye, but no, we find that out right away, and that really gets us into these characters, because obviously we need to connect all these characters, and that's exactly how we do it, by introducing that she hit Rye. I thought that was definitely very well done. So he's limping and grunting around the garage, and Ed shined a flashlight to find Rye trying to hack his way out of the house, and he decides that hacking on Ed would be just as suitable, but Ed stabs him repeatedly and finishes what Peggy started, and basically he's now killed Rye. Rye is now dead, even though he wasn't dead. Now he is dead. So now they basically have murdered Rye, even though probably wasn't their intention. They've now done that, and I thought it was very funny that they didn't plan on murdering him, but they murdered him anyway. I just found that very, very funny, definitely. So now they have murdered Rye, and that's gonna be their big thing all season, is trying to, not tell Lou, obviously, that they were the ones that murdered Rye. And when Peggy approaches Ed, he jerks around so fast he elbows her in the eye, and I thought that was kind of funny. And she says that she's got to believe him. She thought that he was dead, and I can understand that, but at the same time, it's like, that's pretty crazy. But then we see a flashback that shows that Peggy indeed hitting Rye with the car, and she probably did think he was dead, considering how much blood was pouring through the windshield. In fact, I'm surprised that Rye survived. How the hell do you survive from that? I don't know, but supposedly, he did survive. I don't know how he survived, but he did. I'm not gonna question why. I mean, that's Fargo logic. He survived. Again, don't know how, but he did. Basically, we see that he was dead, considering how much blood was pouring through the windshield. And Ed seems confused as to why Peggy didn't just go to the police, because, that'd probably be the logical thing to do. And she claims that she panicked, but those same flashbacks convey otherwise. We basically see that she was kind of panicking, though. She was cleaning the blood off her clothes, and, she basically cleaned the blood. She was going crazy. And maybe there is something that Peggy's hiding. We don't know. I feel like she has a darker agenda than it seems because it just seems like there's something more going on with this. What it is, I don't know, but it just seems like Peggy has a much darker agenda than we think. So Peggy says that they could tell people she hit a deer or take off for California, and Ed doesn't want to leave his life in Laverne. So she convinced him that they need to clean it all up, or otherwise his hopes and dreams are gone. No family, no butcher shop, no Peggy, and they basically decide to stash Rye in a cooler. That's what they decide to do here. So we see how that works out and that they've now stashed him inside a cooler. And then we get this really sweet scene between Lou and Betsy. He's basically comforting Betsy. He knows that she's probably not going to make it. And it's a sad scene because, he's telling her how he wants to be with her. And then he knows that they might not have much more time together. It's a very sweet scene. I definitely like seeing that. You already care about these characters. One, because we already knew Lou. But two, we know the situation that they're in. I think just knowing Lou and knowing that his wife died and knowing that she's probably going to die and there's no way he's going to get out of this, that's what's really sad. But I think it works very well because it helps us connect these characters, and I definitely like seeing that. So we get the end of the episode, and I love the way this episode ends. Right away, it's a very great ending, and I loved it. We see Joe below, played by Brad Garrett, who is perfect in this role. I haven't seen Brad Garrett do anything in a while, but he is awesome in this. The last time I saw him in anything was actually Night at the Museum, when he was Dum Dum, of course, Dum Dum Want Gum Gum. That was the last time I saw him. But it's cool to see him here. He's great in this show, and he's talking about the Northern Exposition Strategy, which really isn't a business plan, it's a mob business plan. And he's part of the Mafia in Kansas City, and they want to expand, and that plan involves taking over the Gerhardt operation in Fargo. And we realize that now that, most of the sons are gone, the person that is now going to be taking over, because he talks about, who is going to be taking over now, because obviously, uh, Rye is dead. Rye just died. Their father suffered a stroke. Otto suffered a stroke, obviously. So who's going to take over? None other than Floyd. Floyd is now going to take over, which he doesn't think is going to be much of a problem because she is a woman, and in that time, women weren't as strong and weren't seen as, powerful as they are nowadays. So Floyd is now going to be taking over the Mafia, which is going to be very interesting to see where that goes. I think it's going to make Floyd a very compelling character, and I can't wait to see where that goes with her, but she's going to be taking over, apparently, and, it seems that Joe, it seems like with Joe, it seems like things are going to go really well, but I don't really think it's going to. It seems like there's a lot more that they're up against, and that basically is how the episode ends. And yeah, not too much happened in this episode. I mean, we got some exposition, we got the story that we need to get, but it really set us up for a lot of really good stuff. I can't wait to see what happens in this season because was a really great premiere, I have to say, definitely. I really love where this season is going, definitely. Let's first talk about our main thing here. Um, let's talk about the whole thing with Lou. Is Lou going to find out? Obviously, he does. We see in the promo that he does go to Peggy and Ed. He does meet them up, and they're going to connect. But obviously, they have to hide the fact that Peggy is the one that killed Rye. So how are they going to hide this? We'll have to see. I mean, Peggy seems to be doing a good job so far, but Ed, I don't know. Ed kind of seems like the let's just say he kind of seems like the Lester Nygaard of the season, where he's very awkward, he's very nervous, and maybe he'll be like Lester. Where what I like about Peggy and Ed, I have to say, is that Peggy represents Lester at the end of season one, and Ed represents Lester at the beginning of season one. Lester at the beginning of season one was very not confident. He was very nervous. He was very scared even of what's going on. And then towards the end, he became like this badass that was very much like just a killer that just killed people, and he didn't really have any mercy doing it. And that very much seems like Peggy. Peggy has a much darker agenda. I don't really know what it is yet, but that definitely is gonna be very interesting to see where that goes. I really want to talk about the actors here. Everyone is phenomenal in this show. I love everyone in this show so far. I think Patrick Stewart is perfect as Lou. You really see him as this character. You see why, and I like that they're doing this because you really do see him as a young Lou. He has much of the same mannerisms. Lou is not a character I remember much of from the first season because it's been so long since we've seen him. I don't think he made a lot of appearances in the first season, but I think this is really going to expand upon the story with Molly, and I can't wait to see how that turns out because that overall is very interesting. I really love, I have to say, I already really also love Ted Danson in this show. The banter between those two is just great. It's very awkward, obviously, because this is his son-in-law, and this is, Lou's father-in-law, so it's kind of awkward between them, but it's very funny, and I definitely really like that. However, I think the real stars of the show are by far Kirsten Dunst and Jesse Plemons. They are just great. I could watch a whole show just around these two. They're so funny. They're so just worried about what's going to happen. You can tell how scared Ed is in this situation. I love it. I really love how scared they are. It's very funny, and I can't wait to see where that goes. That is going to be very fun to watch, definitely. I really love where that's going. I also, of course, really do like Jean Smart. I think we don't get too much of her in this episode, but she definitely is going to be a great character. Now she's taking over the Mafia. This is going to be very interesting to see where that goes with her taking over the Mafia, because who would have thought that she would have taken over all people, and I like that she's now taken over because they don't really think that she's much of a threat right now, but I think she's going to be much more of a threat than we think. So, also, why did Peggy choose to save Rye? Obviously, she didn't kill him. Why didn't she kill him? We'll have to see. Obviously, Ed killed him, but why didn't Peggy? It just seems like she had a much darker agenda, and I don't really know what it is now. We'll have to see where that goes. I really do feel bad for Lou and Betsy. We know that Betsy is gonna die. It's very sad to see what's going on there. What actually is going on with Betsy? How is she dying? Why is she dying? Things like that. We'll have to see. Bruce Campbell as Ronald Reagan looks fantastic. I can't wait to see Bruce Campbell as Ronald Reagan. That is perfect casting right there. Who would have thought Bruce Campbell would play a president? That is perfect. For a show like Fargo, that is the definition, I think, of perfect casting. He looks great in this show, and I can't wait to see how he is. We saw that in the promo, and he just looks spectacular. And this was really, really great, I have to say. It doesn't feel like a new season. It just feels like the beginning of what we got from last season. It very much seems like this is just going to connect the two halves together, see what happened. And we still don't know what happened in Sioux Falls, obviously, because that's the big question, is what the hell did happen in Sioux Falls and why is it so crazy? But it does go with the theme of this quiet, small town that now is very corrupt, and it definitely seems like where we're going, that things are getting a lot more corrupt and it's getting a lot more crazy, and I can't wait to see where that goes. That's going to be very funny, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. But overall, guys, I absolutely love this premiere. It's already fantastic. I can't wait to see um, where it goes. Definitely, it's very, very funny. It's very fun as well. It has a great cast, great ensemble, and I really feel that they are going to surpass the first season. I know it's only the first episode. There were just some things I liked more about this season in particular. I mean, I think that there's more characters. There's a broader storyline. Last season was very simple. It was very much just Lorne and Lester. They were the bad. Lester was an anti-hero. Lorne was the bad guy. And then Gus and Molly were going after them. That basically was this season. This season, I don't really know what's going to happen, because we have some characters that could go either way. Peggy and Ed, I don't really know. Maybe Ed's going to turn into Lester, or Peggy's going to be the Lorne. We'll have to see. But it also seems like we have these gangsters as well, so there's more at stake this season. I really like seeing that. Also, we have these two cops interacting, which is very funny, and I love the interaction between the two of them. Also, I'm wondering if we're going to get more with Molly this season. I'm not really sure. I mean, Molly obviously is just a little girl, but I would, you would figure that since she had so much to do in the first season, since they focused on her so much, and since this is basically us finding out more of her story, and that's why we're getting this, I hope they do focus somewhat on Molly. I don't know if they're going to. Maybe they will. We'll have to see. But let me know what you guys thought of this premiere overall. I thought this was a very solid premiere. I absolutely loved it. I already love where the season is going. I can't wait for the rest of the season. It's going to be fantastic, and I hope that they keep up the momentum of this episode, because I'm already loving it. It's great, and I can't wait to see where it goes. But that's just my review. Hope you all enjoy it, and we'll see you guys in my next review, which will be for tonight's episode of Awkward, and then we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.